Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, So Grow Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of So Grow Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Are you a nonprofit professional who's feeling overwhelmed and burnt out? Well, welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast. I am your host, Haley Cooper. On this podcast, we will share stories of leadership, courage, and empathy that'll help you learn to take care of yourself, your staff, organization, and community. You will hear from nonprofit leaders who have been in your shoes and have learned best practices to raise more revenue and make a greater impact. Let's thrive together. Hello, everyone. This is Haley Cooper. I'm the founder of this interview series and podcast, and I am so excited to have Monica Horner as my first interview guest for this series on leadership. I believe leadership is fundamental to how we grow, and it's both a personal and external process. And Monica Horner is one of my coaches from the Executive Coaches of Orange County, and I'll give a little bit of her background. She was the director of strategic giving at the Second Harvest Food Bank, where she personally solicited all major gift donors and worked with board members, the CEO, and her development team to fundraise over $5 million annually, plus raise $8.5 million for a capital campaign. She has over 13 years of experience as a professional fundraiser and leader in the nonprofit space. And I want to welcome you today, Monica. And why don't you start by, I know I just read your brief bio, but giving us a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, Haley. Well, thank you so much for having me. So honored to be here. Thank you. Yeah, I came actually fresh out of college. I went to Second Harvest to look for a job because I knew I wanted to start in nonprofit. I came out of college with a degree in psychology, BA in psychology, and I thought, okay, I want to get into nonprofit, not sure what I want to do there, but Second Harvest seemed to be the place to be. And it sure was, because when I started back in 2000, they were in Orange, and we were at our old packing house warehouse there. And boy, that was quite an adventure. It was so much fun. I started out as a volunteer coordinator for a couple of years, and then I quickly moved up to grant writer, and then eventually development director. And I ended up, as you mentioned, as director of strategic giving, working with the major gifts before I left. And so it's been quite the ride. And I feel like almost Second Harvest raised me. That's where I kind of learned the ropes and gained my experience as a fundraiser. And also that was the training ground for me as a coach as well.
So yeah, that's a wonderful journey. And you kind of, like you said, were raised up in the nonprofit field and really got to experience what it means to be a nonprofit professional at every level. So tell me a little bit about, how that's impacted your leadership experience and led you to where you are today.
Well, I think being the head of the development department, being able to kind of grow in a career from, like I said, I started as volunteer coordinator and eventually worked my way up to head of the department. That really taught me a lot. Not only about donor relations and fundraising, but most importantly about how to lead a team, how to work with board members, and a lot about myself as well. How to handle myself in certain situations. Different employees had different situations going on personally and professionally, and being able to kind of mentor them and coach them towards the latter part of my career was so much fun. And that kind of segued me into coaching when I put my career on hold in 2013 so I could stay home with my boys. They were kind of at an age where I was able to and I wanted to do that, to transition to kind of a full-time stay-at-home mom. And I was able to do that. And at the same time, I got the opportunity to learn about coaching a little bit more and to become a coach through Executive Coaches of Orange County.
Well, thank you so much for sharing and for your courage to step out and really lean into what was important for your family at that time, and use what your skills are to pour into other people and really raise up the next generation of leaders. I know that we've been formally coach and mentor and mentee since 2021 or late 2020, and I know how much value that I found from your leadership and coaching style. I know that you have, obviously, I'm going to take a step back before we dive into that, but I know that you, like you said, you've worked with boards, you've worked with teams. I know that as a director or a leader, a lot of your role is managing up. So what have you found that has been some challenges with managing up either to a CEO or a board of directors?
Yeah, I've definitely experienced both. So the number one, I think, challenge that I've seen not only in my own career, but in my coaching with clients is burnout. I really feel like, and speaking from experience too, because I've definitely experienced burnout myself in nonprofit, it's something that should not be ignored. I've seen it through the years where employees will just kind of put their own self-care by the wayside, maybe not go to those checkups or just not want to take time away from their everyday, take an hour or whatever it is during their lunch to go to the dentist or whatnot. And then the problem just builds. And, especially when it's mentally affecting your life and your work, it all kind of blends together and you don't realize it. And my message for leaders is, great managers are people who I think recognize the signs of burnout and recognize when their employees need to take a little bit of time for self-care. Doesn't mean they need to take a month. Some people, I think, might need to, but in general, a little goes a long way. Taking care of yourself can mean making sure that they go to checkup appointments, or making sure that they eat right, making sure that they're sleeping every night, have a good night's rest, that they're not, especially these days when we're doing virtual work, a lot of us are doing virtual work at home. Sometimes the clock never stops. So setting those boundaries and making sure that, you kind of cut it off, the emails and the texts at a certain time every night so that you're not up at midnight and then super tired the next day. Or maybe employers providing like a Zumba class or some kind of a yoga class, or encouraging their employees, to do meditation, those kinds of things. But most importantly, something that's free that I think leaders can do is just check in with their employees. Ask the question, how are you doing? Employees want to know that their employer cares about them, cares about their welfare. So it's something that costs no money, takes very little time. Just knowing that somebody cares goes a long way.
You hit an important point and something that I am super passionate about, because like you said, burnout is rampant throughout nonprofits, and it is a mental and emotional issue that does exacerbate into physical ailments. I know so many people who have experienced burnout and have had heart issues and health issues. When it comes down to it, every single person in an organization or outside, no matter who they are, want to feel like they're valued and that they're heard. And so I liked what you said, that, there's obviously all the health benefits that people can do that might cost something, but it's free to literally check in and ask your employee how they're doing, especially over the last year when, like you said, we're working virtually. The problems that we're dealing with have just skyrocketed. There's suffering and hardship, and people don't have that safe space to express how they're feeling or how, they're reacting to it. And they kind of have to push it down, and then it just all of a sudden comes up, and it can, come out as negativity or lack of joy or passion or motivation, and then your productivity goes down. So you made two important points. earlier, which I'd like to, and now that I'd like to bring up, is when you mentioned internal work. And I think becoming and developing an emotionally connected team is to become self-aware of your own emotions and how you're reacting to certain situations. So we'll start there. Can you give us some guidance into like how you kind of did the internal work for your leadership style and how you've worked with becoming more self-aware as a leader?
Yeah, I think just it starts with listening, to be honest. And it's just, usually when an employee would come in, or nowadays it's my client because I'm not currently working, it starts there. It starts kind of, just letting them talk about whatever there is on their mind. If it's a work situation, it could be about a particular project or it could be about a particular person. And that's okay. It's, also allowing the employee or the client space for letting them know that it's confidential. This is confidential what we're talking about. We're not going to go talking, gossiping or, letting other people know what we're talking about. This is between you and I, and this is a safe space where we can talk about issues and try to figure out a solution for them. And usually when I'm talking to a client, I try to, usually the answer comes out from within. So it's not usually me giving them the answer. It'll take some time, but the answer to their problem will usually come out of them because out of questions and answers and sometimes, providing examples or experience that I've had or other colleagues of mine have had. So it's kind of a fun process for me as a coach. And then I noticed when I was working, it was something, I feel like it really built camaraderie and it built trust. So again, those were kind of that was the training ground for me at Second Harvest when I was working with my employees, my staff, my team. And it was something that made me feel good, something that I felt like I could do.
Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs. Helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. Yeah, I think active listening is so important. And I've been in situations where, and with you in the coaching sessions where, you feel validated in your feelings, but the way people respond through active listening and some of the other ways that you described, you feel that in your heart. You feel that change within yourself when people make you feel valued and make you feel heard and seen, and that everything's going to be okay. And so I would love to know, and I know that your coaching style, and I love it because you ask hard questions that make it come from within. And I found that that's really a game changer in how you approach coaching. I know I have a client and they wanted me to do all the work for them. And I said, no, I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions. And then it started unraveling and I knew that it was in her. She just needed someone to like prompt her and give her that space to really be creative and know what was within. So can you tell me a little bit more about your coaching style and maybe some questions that you would ask to help really provoke the answers that come from within?
Well, one of the styles, I guess, or the methods is kind of being a sounding board for people. A lot of times it's in their heads, what they want to do. If there's a problem or they're not sure which way to go, just being a sounding board. So just, almost kind of like writing down columns of A, B, C, all these different options, and we'll go through them. And then at the end of the session, they'll, kind of take away, okay, I think I should go with C. I think that sounds better. And it's just, I think just having somebody hear them out and me maybe chiming in here and there about, well, have you thought of this? Or, oh, do you know about this resource? That really kind of helps lead them down a certain path that they take. It's not about me telling them what I think they should do because it's not my life, it's theirs. And so again, a series of questions might be, it just kind of depends on the situation. If they, let's see, I've had clients who actually have had to make the tough decision of going into staying with nonprofit or going into like for-profit business. They've had other offers, and it's a tough decision because their heart is in nonprofit, and then they're young and maybe the money is in for-profit, and they need to make a living, especially here in Orange County. And so with this one client, I said, well, you can do both. She said, really? And I said, yeah. Have you ever thought about maybe volunteering or sitting on a board for a charity that you love and still being able to support them financially too, even with this new career that you could possibly have? That's not something that I'm telling you to do, but it's just something like you could actually do both. And if you don't have time to volunteer, you can maybe financially support them either now or later on down the line. She goes, I never really thought about that, because I could kind of tell that she was leaning towards this new career in for-profit. It was something that she was also very interested and passionate about. And so it ended up that she ended up choosing the for-profit route, and she's a financial supporter and I think on a board of one of her favorite charities. And so she got to do both, and it kind of set the trajectory for her life as well, kind of a new path for her.
Wow, that's amazing that you inspired her to step out with what was financially reasonable for her, but also inspire her to continue to give back. And I think people don't know that they can hold both, but that's so important. And I know in my own experience, you helped me over the last couple months decide if I was going to go back to a nonprofit job or step out and do my own thing, all while being a full-time mom. And I know that, I had the answer within me, but I needed those questions to really realize what my values were and what I wanted to do with my future. And like you said, I think one of the most valuable parts of your coaching style and coaches in general is having a sounding board. Sometimes it's hard to go to your own leader and your manager and ask questions because, like you said, there's not always that safe space to do so. And I know with transition with an organization that I was going through, you were the sounding board for me, and I was able to work out some of those issues that I was dealing with in a productive way and not just complaining, but really like coming up with real solutions on how to approach certain situations, especially in the midst of transition. So can you elaborate a little bit more on why coaching is so valuable for professionals in the nonprofit field?
Yeah. There's some stigma behind coaching, or there has been, and some people think that it's for weak people or people who are super green and new, or people who are struggling. And that's not the case. There's training for people like that who are struggling, or there is like reprimanding or something like that if their behavior is off. But this is for professional development, coaching. A lot of bosses are actually adopting coaching into their management style themselves. And if not, then they're encouraging their employees to get into coaching because they're finding that it really, really enhances their employees' performance and increases longevity within the organization. And who doesn't want that in nonprofit, especially now when there's so much turnover, now more than ever before. I think that, leaders are finally awakening to coaching because it really, really makes a difference. Where else can you spend an hour to talk about you? Coaching is all about you. It's not all about, anything else. The client drives the conversation and the agenda. And I know you'll remember too, like I would send out a coaching prep form ahead of time. So our coaches at EC of OC, they'll take like an assessment the first time they meet a client over the phone or Zoom or in person, whatever it may be, and just really listen and try to figure out what's going on with the client and what they want to talk about. And that's all it is. It's just figuring out where the problem issues are. And you don't have to talk about everything. It's just whatever, you feel compelled to share about. And then from there, I like to use the coaching prep form. And that's just kind of a way to prep the client and myself. Kind of helps me to do a little homework ahead of time too, just to get my mind straight and really focused in on my clients. I think, did I answer your question? Sorry.
Yes, you did. So you did mention that, I know we're going a little off script here, but the client or the professional drives the agenda. So how have you found them to set an agenda that will be the most productive, or how they can drive it, like a coaching session, to get out what they want, I guess. I don't know if that's the best question, but yeah, how to like set the agenda so that you can work towards your goals or whatever.
Towards their goals, yeah. So like in the beginning, during say an assessment time is when the client can set their goals. Sometimes goals change though, especially nowadays, things are changing so much. The dynamics of, different employees are leaving, and sometimes leaders are leaving so soon. Sometimes their goals will change, and that's okay. And that is why before every meeting, they should fill out some kind of coaching prep form, or at least verbalize, hey, what do we want to talk about today? And what do you want to accomplish? That really helps drive the conversation and ensures that the client is getting something out of that session. And if they're not, then that's okay. Sometimes there needs to be another part, another session sooner than later. And then at that point, the client or the coach can ask those questions. Did we cover everything today? I usually find that like an hour and a half is just the right amount of time, between an hour and a half. If it goes a little bit longer, it can get too long-winded and take up time for the client. I'm always aware and like cognizant of that, because usually they have to get back to work or whatnot. So it's not something that lasts all day or hours. But yeah, another session can also be scheduled if it's something that the client really wants.
Yeah, that's good advice, so people can be prepared and really be strategic on how they approach their coaching sessions. And I know that I found that valuable with setting the agenda, not only in our coaching sessions, but in other coaching sessions that I've been in as well, to really drive the conversation forward. Is there anything else that you would want people to know about coaching, or about how to build coaching into your leadership, which I know that you've done over the years?
Yeah, I just think, for the leaders out there to just keep in mind that everyone, and including themselves, I'm sure, is just going through so much right now. And I really think that the buzzword, it's not just a buzzword, but it's just a new thing that we need to be aware of, is self-care of our employees. If you want your employees to take care of your organization and you as a leader, then honestly, our leaders need to take care of our employees. They need to look out for them. Like I said, check in with them. It's free and it's easy and it's quick. Like, just make sure that everything's okay. That they don't have to be responsible for their personal life or anything, but just, say, how are you doing? And let them know that you care. If they're struggling with something at work, address it right away. Don't let it grow to be a big mess and then the employee wants to leave later. Try your best to nip it in the bud. Usually if has to do with like another employee in the office or whatever it may be, work it out. Don't be afraid to attack it in a good way, in a humane way. And, just remember that everybody's going through something. Everybody's always going through something. And so just kind of be aware, attack it with mindfulness, I think, and be careful, with care as well and concern.
Yeah, before I get to my last two questions regarding self-care and joy, I did want to do a little plug, because I'm all about building emotionally connected teams, and I am an EMC Train the Trainer. EMC Leaders was developed by Lola Gershfield, who will be one of our interviewees, and it's all about going from a negative cycle to a positive cycle, and how to understand the language of emotions, rebuild connection, and understand what triggers you, what your automatic responses are, so that you understand how you approach different situations, and then understanding it from the other person's perspective as well, and really taking it out of the blame cycle and really into a positive cycle where we reach for positive connection. And it's a valuable opportunity to build more productivity and really raise your revenue and achieve your mission, which is all we want to do at the end of the day, right? And we need to have, like you said, that space to ask people just how they're doing. Not that hard, but it is, I guess. Yeah. So my last two questions, which I like to ask, and you really mentioned self-care, so we'll start there. What is a method of self-care that you love to use in your daily life?
I love to meditate. Don't do it every day as much as I would like to, but I do it, enough every week. I also enjoy working out. There was a time when I did not work out at all, especially when I had babies, because that's just hard. And working full time, that was tough. But anything, any kind of movement, whether it be a walk or a short jog, whatever it is, or just some light weights, I don't know, anything. It just helps mentally. If anything, it helps mentally. I remember when I was working at Second Harvest and we had done our capital campaign and we moved to the Great Park. It's a multi-thousand square foot facility. And we would do like laps around the building, and we figured out that 4 laps was a mile. And that was the best thing ever, because I always felt guilty to like take time out. And then we kind of started a trend. We thought, you know what? It started with 2 of us, and then like more, and then others joined, and then others joined. And then pretty soon people were taking walks at different times of the day. You know, we'd space them out or whatever. It's not like we were taking an hour or anything. It was like 15 minutes for a mile. And pretty soon we kind of started a movement, and it just helped. I mean, because you're sitting all day long, and that's just not good for your health at all, or mentally, physical or mental. So I like to work out. I like to meditate and spend time with my friends and family. That's also another great stress reducer, I think. Spending time with people you love, or make you laugh, or, you know, make others laugh, whatever it may be. Just have fun. Life is too short.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I found that, you know, in emotionally volatile situations, or when emotions are heightened, taking deep breaths and coming back to the present is so important to your own mental health, and also movement. And I think there's so many, and people, when they think of self-care, they think of it an added to-do list, but we need to think of it as a way to make ourselves better so that we can show up as our highest self and impact other people in the way that we want to. But we can't if we don't fill ourselves up first. And it really doesn't have to be expensive. Like you said, you can walk outside, weather permitting, you know, in Orange County. Luckily, it's nice year round, but just those 2 practices I think people can start with. And when people think of deep breaths, they're like, I don't think I could sit alone for a minute. And I know that was me when I first started my meditation practice, but now I can get up to 20 minutes and I feel so much better after I do it. And at the end, you mentioned a little bit about what fills you up, but I would love to know, and I love asking this question, what is bringing you joy these days?
Well, like I said, like being with friends and family these days, I think is great, because after being somewhat of a shut-in, I think we can all relate. During the pandemic, you realized, gosh, how much time passed by, and you're almost feels like you're wasting time, because these precious moments with the kids, or like, you know, my parents who are getting older, or other family and friends, like just it's just time is passing by too quickly. And so I do enjoy those moments with my friends and family. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, just spending time visiting, even calling on the phone. You know, you don't have to be there in person all the time. Yeah. So those are kind of my favorite things. And again, like movement, anything like that is great. Anything that'll just help me be more mindful and just aware of others and their feelings. Because like I said, everybody I run into these days are just so stressed out, and we don't need that. People need some kind of relief, I think, in order to be more productive and just happier overall. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. You are such a light to the world, and you are such a gift to me and everyone that'll be listening to this. And I know that everyone that you've coached, and you're so important to this field. And I'm just so grateful for you. So thank you for being here with me and helping me on my journey as well.
Thank you so much. You have been just a sheer delight to work with. I mean, just in the short time we've known each other, it's been so great. You are just like, you go above and beyond. I mean, let me tell you, you are definitely, when I had babies, I was not doing half the things you're doing. So good for you. Like, I just totally admire that. And I also just wanted to say really quick, for anybody who would like to receive coaching, free executive coaching, go to ecofoc.org, read the website. There's our coaches' bios are there. You can read all about our fabulous coaches. They come from a variety of backgrounds in nonprofit and business, and many of them have been on boards or are currently on boards. They just offer just so much information, and it's just a wealth of knowledge to all of our clients. Again, it's free. What are you waiting for? We're there for our Orange County community. So
Amazing. I'll definitely make sure to put that in the show notes, and just thank you again. And I look forward to continuing this series.
Thank you so much, Haley.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.